Okay, so let's continue with light and shade now. So here's where we were at the end of the last video, where we had kind of just broken down the form into light side and shadow side, just flat, even tones, and taking care of the local value, so those values, the general value differences between the objects. All right, so the next step is to use light and shade to create volume. That's what we're interested in here. So, and what makes something look volumetric on a two-dimensional surface is very simple. It's just a gradation of light, from light to dark, dark to light. That gradation is what's going to make things look like they're rounded. So, having established where the light is, in this case, for both of these objects, the light source is above, is to the right, and it's in front of the object. And we know that here because these cast shadows are, the axis of those cast shadows are moving uphill. So that means the light source is around to the front. And here we know that the light source is around to the front because I see more light than shadow. All right. So we're going to start with the rectangular solid. So the rectangular solid is, its form is already given to us by the fact that we see these facets put together. So the gradation of light is not going to, in this case, create more of a sense of roundness. We've already got the sense of roundness through these planes coming together. But it's a good place to start just to get the sense of the flow of light across the object and how that works. So with the light above and to the right, we're going to start off by just looking at two simple gradation patterns. One is a vertical gradation pattern. So since the light's above, we're going to see a light to dark transition this way. So the light is going to get darker as it goes down that way. So there's a vertical gradation. And then there's a horizontal gradation, a light to dark this way. So as we move away from the light source, things are going to darken. All right, so that's what's going to occur in the lights. All the lights that we see up here, so whether it's on this object or this object, we're going to be looking for that kind of gradation. Light to dark this way, light to dark that way. All right, so in the shadow, it's a little bit different. The gradation pattern in the shadow is created by what's called reflected light. That's the primary light source up here, coming down and then bouncing back into the shadow, and that creates a different kind of gradation pattern. So the gradation pattern in the shadow is created by light bouncing off from this point. So if that hits like here, then we're going to see a gradation pattern in the shadow of light to dark this way, because as we move away from the source of that light, in this case a reflected light, the light's going to weaken. So we're going to see light to dark this way. So if it's hitting about there, then it's going to go light to dark this way. It's also going to move light to dark. If it's coming from over here, light to dark this way. All right, so it's going to be a gradation pattern of light to dark this way, light to dark that way. All right, so it's different from the light. That's why it's so important at the beginning to really make very clear for yourself where that demarcation line is between the light and shadow, because we've got two different things going on in terms of gradation pattern. All right, so in the light, with a planar object like this, what I do first is just try to break it down in terms of plane. So I know this plane is going to be lighter than this plane because this plane's facing up more towards the light. So I would differentiate this plane first from this one by making this lighter. This plane should be lighter than this one. Okay, and then one of the challenges as we create this pattern of gradation is to make sure that we don't lose this initial breakdown of light and shadow. So if I make this darker than that, okay, that's fine. I want to do that because this is a darker tone than this one. But I also want to make sure that as I work this object in terms of light and shade, I maintain this original difference between this being light and this being shadow. That's really important. So if this goes too dark and it starts looking like the shadow, then that's no good. I've got to always protect this original division of light and shadow as I go. All right, so once I've established the plane difference, then I can look within the planes and I can say, okay, well, this plane is going to go from light to dark this way because this area is lighter, that area is darker. So, so over here, and so even across a short distance like this, and in life, you may not even see a difference. And I'm gonna just try to emphasize the difference a little bit. But we just know, because of the way light works, it diminishes over distance. That's got to be lighter over here and then darker as I move across that plane. And that flow of light, that gradation, will just give a little bit more light effect. Again, it's not giving me volume across there, but it's giving me a little bit a greater sense of the light effect. So along this side, it's going to be a little bit, the light's going to be a little bit darker down here, and then lighter as I go up towards, lighter as I go up towards the top. So up here, things are going to be lighter up here, and then darker as I come down here. But again, I can't go so dark down here that it starts looking like shadow. I've got to maintain this difference. So lighter up here, and then darker as I go down. That's what's happening. Now sometimes down here, let's make that a little bit plainer. Let's see a little bit better. Sometimes down here, the light can bounce off of here and it can affect this. So sometimes you might see, if this is a very light surface, like a white table, then I'll have more of a bounce of light off of it. You might see something like light to dark and then light again down here. So it might go light, dark, light, because the reflected light off of this surface is impacting the light. So reflected light can affect the light as well as the shadow. But what's going to have the larger impact on these light planes is the direct light source. Okay, and then in the shadow, I said the light's bouncing here, so I'm going to get a light to dark this way and a light to dark moving this way as well. So my lightest area in here, and I have to think the same way in the shadow here. Like I can't go so light with a reflected light that it starts looking like the light side, because then I'm going to create a spot in the shadow. And every time you break up a light or a shadow with an unnecessary value, it's going to weaken the graphic strength of the image. So again, I'm gonna push this idea a little bit. So when I'm up in this area, things are going to be the darkest. Now I also have to think about the key, like this. I'm thinking about this as a white object, so that I don't want to go too dark up here. Like I can't go that dark, but it's going to be darker up here, and then this area up here that's closest to light is called a core shadow. So this area up here is core shadow. That's the part of the shadow that's furthest away from the light, the reflected light down here. So it maintains its darkness more. So you'll see this a lot in old master drawings. They make use of this. This darker area of shadow against this lighter area of light creates a lot of interest along that area. Okay, so what I'm working towards here is a gradation of light to dark this way, light to dark as I come down here, light to dark as I move over here. Again, really important to try to, like when I want to keep squinting at this and make sure that this stays as a solid unit against that. So that original idea of putting in the lights and shadows very simply to create this unity of shadow against unity of light, I've got to always protect that as I kind of move on to these next steps. Okay, so that's the rectangular solid in a nutshell, and we'll come back in another video and look at the sphere.